The global war on terror was actually a war for domination in oil rich regions, continuance of defense spending, and military control around the world. The government has sensationalized or been dishonest about incidents in the past as a vehicle to go to war, and support for the Iraq War was abounding pre 9/11 from PNAC members inside the Bush administration who needed, quote unquote, a new Pearl Harbor to mobilize in the Middle East. U.S. intelligence agencies likely had enough information to recognize that there was an imminent threat and could have potentially hampered or prevented the 9/11 attacks that benefited rich oil executives and the people in power so much, and the American middle class and service members so little. The government has a history of sensationalizing or being dishonest about incidents as a vehicle to go to war. Examples of this are the Maine, the Spanish-American War, or the Lusitania for World War I, which was sensationalized. Or there's examples of them planning for war before the event that supposedly sends the U.S. into the war happens, like how the Orange Plan existed before Pearl Harbor actually happened. The PNAC or the Project for a New American Century, is a neoconservative organization based in Washington, D.C. whose message was basically global military and economic domination, that America should intervene in any governments or economies that aren't going its way. One of the main supporters of this was Dick Cheney and many other Bush top officials. In fact, 25 of the signing founding members of the 10 of the 25 signing members of the PNEC joined the Bush administration afterward, and it remained a very highly connected organization throughout that time. They supported very strongly going to war in Iraq, and quoted, to quote them, they required a new Pearl Harbor to achieve the changes that they would like to see. The military spending at the time was at an all-time low since World War II, the defense budget, and it was looking to go that way. It goes back to, what do you do with a standing army? You know, those jobs and those things that made those people rich. And Dick Cheney received $33 million from Halliburton, the oil giant, as a retirement package. So clearly his services and being a war hawk were worth $33 million to this oil giant. And if you look at the Kuwait conflict, the Gulf War, it's very clearly for oil and to liberate the Arabian Gulf for exports and imports and to stabilize the American oil economy, bringing much more wealth into already wealthy executives' pockets at the cost of the bodies and the livelihoods of American soldiers. The fact that certain elements of the public record were altered show corruption of intelligence agencies. Those fake WMDs that they used to go to Iran show corruption of intelligence agencies. In the US, I think it's not a stretch to think that maybe they knew that there was some imminent threat, because the World Trade Center had just been blown up by someone affiliated with the same group that then went on to perpetrate the 9/11 attacks. And we had intelligence looking at the area at the time, and you just can't kid me that our technology and capability wasn't such that we could tell that there was something that was going to happen. The Secretary of Defense, Rumsfeld, also a signing founding member of the PNEC, on the second anniversary of the attacks, in an interview with Jim Lehrer, a TV interview with Jim Lehrer, he called the attacks a blessing in disguise, citing that the American patriotic spirit then was stronger now, trying to walk it back. But it really did make these people rich, and it sends these guys over there to get punked when they come back and realize that they're over there for oil, that they're over there for making rich people richer, and that we don't want to be honest about these things because it wouldn't be patriotic, or it wouldn't follow with the American spirit, or we don't want to make people sad or kind of lose hope. But I think the Bush did 9/11 conspiracy theory is partially that. There's a lot of kind of crazy different wing and sides on it. But at the heart of the matter, the Bush administration wanted to go to war in Iraq, and the 9/11 attacks gave them the momentum to push the country into that. And the soldiers who joined and went over there believed that they were a part of a global force for good. And to do or say that, I suppose, is unfair. And of course, like, who enlists today is not as affluent as they once were. The armed forces appeals economically to individuals of lower socioeconomic class. The GI Bill that pays for your school, the 3 hots and a cot, a lot of young men just trying to escape their current situation or get out of their hometown will join. It's not these rich people's sons. And, my peepaw, Joe Sipper, he was a Vietnam veteran, and he, questioned, why was I there? That was always his anger about, they told him that they were fighting against the communists, and then later they traded with the communists, and it didn't matter anymore, and no one won. And he said that he feels sorry for those boys out there in Afghanistan because he bets that they feel the same way. And they do. Robert Sloan, my partner here, was deeply impacted by the Afghanistan conflict. He was actually blown out of a vehicle. Countless people, receive worse or varying degrees of harm from these conflicts. And, none of them came from these shishi places. Certainly none of them benefited from oil money or in any way from the conflicts. And no one has, for 10 years. So, when is the American public going to start being real about the government just wants to use your body to make more money for itself? In conclusion, yeah, Bush didn't have to do 9/11. Bush could have just let 9/11 happen, but it benefited him, and it benefited other rich people in his contact, but it did not benefit the American public or the service members that had to go over there in any way. And it was un-American and cruel to emotionally manipulate them into feeling that they were fighting terrorists, Anyways.